Can't decide and torn between a romantic, comedy, action, or an indie film to watch for the weekend? Well. Golden State Media Concepts Movie Podcast is your ultimate guide to the latest movies. Join us as we dissect the latest on the blockbusters. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Movie Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the GSMC Movie Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Davey Peppers, and today, while it is still in the middle of the spooky month, which I love so very, very much, today we're still gonna have a little bit of spooks, but we're mostly going to be taking a look at some of the less traditionally spooky films that could potentially be gracing your screens this Halloween season. So we are going to start off with a review of the Halloween comedy, Hubie Halloween on Netflix with Adam Sandler. Then we are going to take a look at the Robert De Niro starring movie The War with Grandpa. And then we are going to do a little bit of a news update on all of the recent adjustments, cancellation, pushes back that have been happening in the news so that we can all stay informed on what's coming up soon in the wonderful world of film. And then at the very end, we are going to take a look at the 4 movies that are being released for Amazon Prime's Welcome to the Blumhouse, a sort of grab bag of various dramas, thrillers, and horrors that Blumhouse Studios is releasing and telling you which of these 4 films are worth your time. All right. So let's start off with discussing Hubie Halloween, the new Adam Sandler joint that he is producing with his multi-film deal with Netflix that has been very lucrative for him with films like The Ridiculous Six and The Week Of and Sandy Wexler and Murder Mystery, films that people do very much seem to enjoy. I am not one of those people, and that is okay. The thing with Adam Sandler movies is that for the most part, you know if you're going to like them. Every now and again, if you're not a fan like myself, you will get something that just really surprises you. Something like You Don't Mess with the Zohan, or even his dramatic work that's kind of outside of his normal wheelhouse stuff like Punch Drunk Loves, or even Uncut Gems, which, while I don't love that movie, his performance in that is fantastic. So I was obviously very skeptical walking into Hubie Halloween, and while I did not enjoy this movie, because it is just simply not for me, there are a few things to praise along with the tons of criticism that I do have for this film. The first thing that I want to point out is that the movie is dedicated to actor Cameron Boyce, who has worked with Sandler on a few films before he unfortunately passed last year. And yeah, it really sucks. And it's really nice to see Sandler and that whole crew remember Boyce for working with them all on the 2 Grown Ups films. One of the supporting actors is Karan Brar, who was Boyce's best friend, and they worked together on a lot of Disney Channel original series and stuff. So that is always really heartwarming, and it's really nice to see someone who was gone too soon have their memory be kept alive in the medium that they worked in and be remembered so positively and so intentionally by the people that they have left behind. So that's just really cool. So good on the whole team of people doing this stuff. So Hubie Halloween is directed by Stephen Brill, and it is written by Tim Herlihy and Adam Sandler, who stars as Hubie Dubois, a difficult person, we shall say. He's doing the Adam Sandler voice. That's not Adam Sandler. It's like Rick Moranis in Little Shop of Horrors. But you know the voice, the very nasally, high-pitched, really annoying voice that Sandler likes to do sometimes in some of his films. But Hubie is the world's biggest fan of Halloween. He lives in Salem, Massachusetts. Yes, that one with the witches and the burning. But he is also the most terrified human being on the planet. So when he is trying to keep Halloween safe and fun for everybody, and he starts to get embroiled in a bit of a mystery with people randomly disappearing and then really bad things going on, he has to kind of, to quote Zombieland, nut up or shut up. And it's a lot about his journey of growing as a person and accepting himself and letting the people around the town who do nothing but ruthlessly mock him to accept him as well. The film also stars Kevin James, Julie Bowen, Ray Liotta, June Squibb, Kenan Thompson, Shaquille O'Neal, Steve Buscemi, Maya Rudolph, Michael Chiklis, Tim Meadows, Noah Schnapp, the kid from Stranger Things, the aforementioned Karan Brar, Colin Quinn, Mikey Day, Melissa Villaseñor, and Ben Stiller. So this is a gigantic cast of people, and it's very similar to a lot of this recent Sandler output. I shouldn't even say recent, like what he's been doing for the 2010s, where just a lot of people that he likes and that like him come together and just kind of mess around for a couple weeks and try and salvage a movie out of it. And while that is not for me, that is not my style of comedy, it's not really my style of filmmaking in any way, I can't deny that it does have its fans, and that's kind of been one of the weirdest things for me thinking about Hubie Halloween, because I want to look at this and say, I hate this, because I kind of do. But it's not an angry hate, it's just a kind of a disappointed, lazy hate, I suppose. But I know that there are people that unironically adore this kind of stuff. Like people that are smart and are smarter than me, and this is just the thing that works for them, the same way that the Fast and Furious movies or the Step Up films are the things that work for me. There's nothing particularly offensive about Hubie Halloween. It is a very well-natured, kind-hearted comedy, even when it tries to get a little spooky or a little dark with some of its Halloween horror adjacent themes. It never gets terribly intense. It never gets terribly consequential, even. This is very much a movie, like, yes, it's PG-13 and there are like sex jokes and some language, but this is really a movie for families. This is really a movie for everyone to kind of sit around and watch, in the same vein of something like Happy Gilmore or Billy Madison. If your kid's like 11, yeah, sure, just show them Billy Madison. It's fine. They've heard worse on the school bus. I mean, school buses don't really exist anymore, and they're generally going out of style, but again, you know what I mean. So, it feels wrong to really go for the throat of Hubie Halloween, because it is a inoffensive, ultimately sweet enough movie. And right now, I think what a lot of people need is something that will just give them some joy and give them a few laughs. There are a few jokes in this movie that really work. They're dumb, and they're not particularly new or clever, but every now and again something will happen, and I'll chuckle a little bit despite myself. And I'll go, oh, that was a pretty cool visual gag, or oh, that was clever. That will be dated in 3 years, but right now, that is clever, and it did make me laugh. There's not a lot of lasting power with a film like Hubie Halloween, and I don't think it's necessarily trying to have it. And I think that's the biggest disconnect between myself and what Sandler does when he's doing what he is most known for, is that he just wants people to have a good time. And I get that, and I respect that. And if this is your idea of a good time, then Hubie Halloween is that, and you should watch it. And you will probably have a good time. You won't remember it as one of his better films, but you won't remember it as one of his worst. You won't remember it like Jack and Jill, or That's My Boy, the movies that really get under my skin personally. But I can't help but look at a film like this and say, shouldn't you want more? Shouldn't you want to make something that could live on and be forever? And maybe that's my problem. Maybe that's a thing that I need not only to deal with, but to kind of reverse this idea that something is less valuable if it is only worthwhile right now, or if it has a small-ish shelf life. Because Hubie Halloween will not be a notable film in 2 months, or 6, or a year, or whatever. It will just be put on the IMDb and Letterboxd lists of those Adam Sandler Netflix movies that he made. And he'll make another one, and we'll talk about that one, and then he'll make another one, and we'll talk about that one. And I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing anymore. I want it to be a bad thing, I should say, because I want people to make stuff that really resonates and only gets better and more resonant as time goes on and brings life to people. But maybe in the shadow of 2020, of the bad year, then maybe, I don't know, maybe it would be best if we were all a little more okay, if I was a little more okay with people just making stuff to try and make someone's day better. And that's definitely not what Hubie Halloween was trying to do as a film. But it had that effect on me. And that's cool and frustrating and new and unique and probably for the best. The film is also very pretty. It's way prettier than it should be. The Halloween aesthetic and the way that some of these bigger set pieces are shot, it gets a lot of the spooky, foggy, moonlit aesthetic really right, and it helps sell a lot of the wackier and sillier moments of the movie just because it looks real good. And a lot of the performances, outside of Sandler doing the voice, which again I'm clearly not a fan of, a lot of the performances are a lot more subdued this time around than they have been in films of this ilk in the past. Kevin James really just gets to play a character. Same with almost the rest of the cast. Some of them are just here to be wacky and have some punchlines. Steve Buscemi, Maya Rudolph, and Tim Meadows to name some examples, but for the most part, they're just there. And I don't even mean that in a necessarily bad way. I mean it in a way of these characters inhabit the world and affect the plot in their own ways, but they don't grate on you. They don't make you go, oh, this guy's back, I can't stand this. Or at least not a lot. And I think maybe that's why Hubie Halloween has been getting surprisingly okay reviews across the board. For the most part, I should say. I know a couple of people who, much like me, really did not care for this, but it feels almost a little less in your face and a little less intentionally obnoxious. I honestly think if Adam Sandler hadn't done the voice, I would probably think this movie's kind of okay. Which, it might be fair and it might be a little bit petty for me to dock so many points because of the vocal affectation that he does, but it is truly hard to take him seriously in any way when he does that voice. I've never liked it. I've never found it funny, even as a child. It's fine in Billy Madison, I guess, but it just has never worked for me, and I wish someone would tell him to stop doing it, quite frankly. But outside of that, there's really nothing about this movie that bothers me. There's just nothing about it that really excites me in any way either. So, I don't know. I mean, it's clear that if you like these types of movies, then you do not care what I have to say because I am pretentious and a little uppity and just not the kind of person that is here to properly appreciate something like this, quite frankly. And maybe making people happy is more important than being important. And so that's what I learned from Hubie Halloween, and that was my Halloween lesson. So thank you, Adam Sandler. Stop doing the voice. And with all that said, while it did unintentionally give me something to learn about, I still have to be true to myself and give Hubie Halloween 3 out of 10 stars. With the caveat that if you want to see it, you probably already have, and you probably won't agree with me. So, if you will stick around a little bit more, we are going to do another movie that I am very much not the target demographic of, the family comedy The War with Grandpa. Then we're going to head into some news and then take a look back at the Welcome to the Blumhouse collection. All right, stick around.
Want to know the latest and hottest music hitting the airwaves? Don't be left out. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast. It keeps you on the loop with everything you need to know from pop, rock, hip-hop, and the top 40. And we'll throw in news of your favorite artists, concert and tour dates, and so much more. Listen no further, because this is the gold standard in music podcast.
And we are back, and if you're wondering why I am in such a good mood as we are returning, it is because I do not have to be nice anymore, because after that Hubie Halloween review, as you might have guessed, now we are going on to a review of The War with Grandpa, which comes out today, the day that you are hearing this. If you're hearing it the day it comes out, you might be hearing it later, and that's totally okay. We just appreciate the support, and it's all good, but it's out when you're hearing this, which is the point. And you shouldn't watch it, because it's really, really terrible, and I'm going to tell you why. So, based on the novel by the same name by Robert Kimmel Smith, The War with Grandpa stars Robert De Niro as Ed, an old man who, after an incident at a grocery store, is basically forced to move in with his daughter and her family. His daughter is played by Uma Thurman. His son-in-law, Uma Thurman's husband, is played by Rob Riggle, and they have a group of children played by Oaks Fegley, Laura Morano, and there's a young one who his name is not on the Wikipedia page, and for that I apologize. But the main thing is Oaks Fegley as Peter, the only boy of the three children, Ed's grandson, whose room Ed takes over when he moves in. So, Peter decides to wage war on Ed, getting a group of his friends together to terrorize this weird old man with a series of pranks that escalate slowly and slowly as they retaliate against each other over and over again for about 90 minutes. And they all learn a lesson about working together and something. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This movie is really bad. I mean, it never looked good. It's been delayed so many times over and over and over again and kind of shuffled around on the release schedule. But even in terms of family comedies, this is really in the Spy Next Door category of just kind of lazy, overly lit, poorly shot, badly acted, like really quick shoots that just have almost nothing going for them, which is mean to say. But it starts to kind of come into a little bit more of perspective, I should say, when we talk about the director, Tim Hill, whose previous works include Garfield, A Tale of Two Kitties, Alvin and the Chipmunks, Hop, which I have a really personal grudge against. I really hate that movie. And the SpongeBob movie, Sponge on the Run, which is not out in the United States yet. So I don't know if it's any good or not, but it'll be out next year, and I'm sure we'll talk about it then. The point is, I do not like this style of family movie. This really... It's honestly the same issue that I have with a lot of like the R-rated comedies coming out, where they're just people talking and then eventually a set piece will happen. It's really quick, really lazy, and it feels condescending to the audience in a way that not even something like Hubie Halloween could manage. The problem with a movie like this is it's designed to be the kind of movie you just put on so the kid you're babysitting will shut up. There's nothing really here. There's nothing earnest in any way. The emotional lessons that get learned at the end feel so tacked on and cheap and hollow. All of the performances are just so overwrought and clearly bored with the material, and I can't necessarily say I blame them. Uma Thurman especially just gets the worst stuff to do as she constantly gets caught in the crossfire of these various pranks that are being pulled, and the mugging that she is doing for the screen honestly rivals like a really bad SNL sketch from the early 2000s. Like, it is rough, and Uma Thurman's an incredibly talented performer, and I don't know why she was in this. I don't know why any of them were in this. I mean, Robert De Niro does a lot of these types of movies. It's not really super out of character for him to do something like this at this point. But even Oakes Fegley, who as a child actor is really good. He is pretty much one of two things that isn't terrible about the Goldfinch movie. His performance in that is honestly kind of great. And here he's just another kid. He was in Pete's Dragon. He was awesome in Pete's Dragon. And I also didn't like Wonderstruck, but he also was really good in that. This is a really talented young performer who knows how to handle screen presence, which a lot of young performers really do not know how to do at that age. But here he's just relegated to the same old Disney Channel nonsense. It's just a really hollow movie. Cheech Marin is in this. Jane Seymour is in this. Christopher Walken is in this movie. And honestly, at a certain point, you just have to ask why. Why would these people do this? And I'm sure it's because it was scheduled around them. It was easy, and they got paid, and they had a nice trailer, and it was all very comfortable. But the thing that makes this movie worse to me than something like Hubie Halloween, which is not for me, but I understand the ethos behind it and what it's trying to do to bring some life. The problem with The War with Grandpa is that in addition to not really treating its audience with any respect, is that it's really mean-spirited if it's trying to bring some light into the world. Like, honestly, you don't get to do we just gotta learn to be friends after the reason why it's quote-unquote funny is because people are getting hurt and people are being miserable. You can't have the schadenfreude of, oh, look, that guy fell, and oh, look at that, he's in pain, and then saying, well, we have to be nicer to each other. There's a reason the Three Stooges shorts didn't end with them all holding each other and laughing, because it was a slapstick comedy, and it had to embrace that. Even Chaplin and Buster Keaton, the great slapstick comedians, they knew to separate the chaos from the heart. They knew that those two things weren't the same thing, and sometimes the slapstick is a thing, the thing causing the slapstick is a thing to be overcome, not reconciled with. And I think that's my biggest issue with a lot of slapstick comedies in general. It feels a lot like the movie Neighbors with Zac Efron and Seth Rogen, which I am not a fan of. And obviously I like that movie more than The War with Grandpa, but they have a similar issue where it's just 90 minutes of people doing mean things to each other, which is fine. I am a bad person, and I like watching other people get hurt. It's funny because I'm broken, and I'm sorry, but it is funny. Then don't make me feel bad about laughing about it, since you are the person peddling the slapstick and peddling the chaos, as it were. If you're going to be chaotic, then just be chaotic. Just own it and embrace it and say, all right, we're doing this, we're going to have some fun, and we're going to watch some people get hurt. And that would be fine. It wouldn't be particularly good, but it wouldn't make me angry. And it feels counterintuitive to get angry about a movie like this, a movie that is somewhat designed for families. I mean, even the second of the two taglines on the posters say, a comedy for the whole family. But I don't even know if that's necessarily true. It's not vulgar. It's not crude. It's not sexual or any way, but it's mean-spirited, and it feels angry. And it feels callous, and it feels like a group of people sitting around saying, oh, whatever, these stupid kids will watch anything. Just make Robert De Niro fall down a couple times and they'll laugh because kids are stupid and we shouldn't trust them with anything. And that is a really bad way to make a movie. If you want to teach people something about being nice to each other or something like that, or give somebody something good to look at, then honestly try. Honestly, have something to offer your audience. Have something of value to give. Because if you don't do that, then you are just perpetuating the stereotype and perpetuating the cycle. People respond with what they are given. And if the family comedy outings in a year that is very sparse and very in need of entertainment that everyone can watch, if the only option this month available for families with young children is this, then people are going to say, yeah, well, kids watch The War with Grandpa. Kids will watch anything stupid that we throw at them. Eat the slop pigs. Oink, oink. And that just really hurts. It really hurts to know that something can be made so cynically and so callously, and that it's just going to perpetuate the cycle. Even if this movie doesn't do necessarily well, it'll probably do well enough because it's something that's out for families, and those movies almost always make their money back. I'm sorry, I know this probably isn't the best segment, but I'm really tired of movies that treat children like they're dumb, that treat children like they can't handle anything. And I know that as the MPAA ratings have kind of evolved and things have gotten more and more sanitized and people have had just weird hangups, especially in America, about what is and isn't okay. The things that this movie says to its young audience is that it doesn't care about them. And I don't think anybody should watch a movie that looks them dead in the eyes and says, we know you're stupid, but you're going to watch this anyway because you're stupid. You want to show your kids something awesome? Something that will give them a sense of possibility and encourage them into the world? Show them Enola Holmes. There's also adventure and slapstick and kids running around and running away from adults. And it's not perfect, but at least it wants something. At least it wants something for its audience and for the world, even if it doesn't hit the nail on the head every single time. There are better ways to entertain your children, especially if they are in the 7, 8, 9, 10 years old range, where they're starting to have questions and starting to have ideas, because I was starting to have questions and ideas around that age. And a lot of the things that I found myself watching were really pedestrian and really basic and didn't ever make me feel respected as a human being, quite frankly. And I think having more films like The War with Grandpa make it harder for entertainment designed for a younger audience to be taken seriously, and makes it harder for young people to find, I say young people, but actual children, to get a love for entertainment. Not that wacky comedies can't be great and can't nourish the soul. I mean, that's even going back to Hubie Halloween. It nourishes souls, that movie, even if it didn't nourish mine, even if I didn't get it. It is kind-hearted, and it is silly. And there are things like that can be found for young audiences, for child audiences. And I implore you, if you're listening to this, to seek those films out instead of films like this, instead of films that you're not going to like it. And your kids might laugh, but they're not going to get anything out of it. They won't remember it. It won't help turn them into the people you know that they can be. And I know that that's a very pretentious and heady way of talking about a film like this. But the movies that I watched when I was young that really sparked my interest, that really made me feel something, turned me into the person that I am today. And I think one of the great gifts and one of the great joys of being able to do these episodes is that I get to talk about how important it is to seek things out for you and for others that can nourish the soul in their own way. Please don't watch The War with Grandpa. Don't show it to your kids. They deserve better because they're people. And maybe don't show them 12 Angry Men, but you can probably show them something with a little more on its mind than just this. Thank you for letting me soapbox for a bit. The War with Grandpa gets 2 out of 10 stars. Now, if you will stick around for another ad break, we are going to do a bit of a news roundup before I do a little roundup of the 4 films being released under the Welcome to the Blumhouse banner on Amazon Prime. So stick around for those. Thank you.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
So now let's move on a little bit from what is out and what you can watch right now to talk a little bit about what's coming up soon. There have been, as there always is, a lot of changes to the 2020 cinema release schedule, and I wanted to go over some of the more notable changes because things are constantly being shifted around and what they could potentially mean. So just going down the list alphabetically, the biggest changes that have been happening recently start with The Batman. So Warner Brothers has been moving around a lot of their films for this year and next year. The Batman, which was already pushed from June 25th of next year to October 1st, is now scheduled to come out on March 4th, 2022. And I think a lot of that is both because of Warner Brothers' general schedule changes, but also the fact that recently Robert Pattinson was diagnosed with COVID-19 on the set of The Batman, and they had to restructure production around his care and his regaining of his health, which there's been no more news about it, which seems like an exceptionally good thing, and I'm very happy that he seems to be okay, because he is good at what he does. Also on the WB front, Black Adam has been placed in to be determined. It was supposed to be released on December 22nd, 2021. There was even a small little animated trailer piece during the WB fandom that happened a little while back, but now it is currently to be determined. It'll probably come out late 2022. Marvel had a bit of a shakeup as well, with Black Widow, which was originally supposed to release back on May 11th, and then was pushed to November 6th, is now coming out a year after its original release date on May 7th, 2021. And that has a lot of effects and pushbacks to various other Marvel movies, which we will be getting into in a bit. But just with those first three, the interesting thing that we're seeing in the differences between the WB pushes and the Marvel pushes is that WB seems much more willing to push things that are not completed. we're going to get to Dune in a bit, which is probably the biggest push, at least in terms of the people that I talked to online. But last we heard, Dune was not finished. And I think a big part of that was because of social distancing and work from home protocols, which makes it very hard to be in a room with your editors and with your composers and sound mixers and all of that stuff. Making a film is hard work, as we know. Warner Brothers seems to be much more interested in delaying films that are not done so that they can be properly done, where Disney seems to be much more in the vein of releasing or delaying releases so that the films that are already done can be shown in the most lucrative possible way. We've seen this with the Artemis Fowl and Mulan Disney Plus releases, as well as a couple other things that we're going to get to later down the list, but the Black Widow push, signifies that the Mulan Disney Plus release did not go as well as I'm sure they would have wanted, but also that they still want this to be a big tentpole film, and that they're willing to continually and seemingly indefinitely push back their Marvel schedule, with the harbinger of the new age being Black Widow. Candyman as well is now set for a 2021 release date. That's been in the works for a while. It was pushed from June 12th to September 25th to October 16th, and now is just in 2021. I know a lot of people, myself included, were really hoping that we would get maybe an October VOD release for Candyman, but more so than something like a Disney that can really sustain a lot of losses. I understand trying to make it a horror event, similar to what A Quiet Place Part 2 is doing with coming out next year. Although it is a bit of a shame, because I would like to watch some of these movies in the spooky month, which I do love so very much, as you all know. So next we have Kenneth Branagh's Death on the Nile, the sequel to Murder on the Orient Express, which was previously moved from the 9th of October to the 23rd, is now coming out on the 18th of December. And because that move happened relatively recently, pretty close to its release date, it does make me think that there is a very real chance that we are not going to see Death on the Nile in 2020. We're probably going to have it pushed to 2021, which feels like the wrong call, just because I know a lot of people, myself included, didn't go see Murder on the Orient Express in theaters, despite the fact that it is a very pretty movie. It doesn't have the theatrical pull that a lot of these films that are doing the big delays seem to have. And I think a mystery with a lot of characters could have a lot of legs right now. And I mean, I'm not the distributors, so I can't say for certain, but I feel like there is a good number of missed opportunities with not putting it on a VOD release sooner rather than later. Back to Marvel, the May 7th, 2021 slot, which now holds Black Widow, was previously held by Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which has now been moved to March 25th of 2022. Again, it's the same thing with the Black Widow move. It's a lot of trying to salvage whatever Disney can seem to do in order to make their profits back and make their Marvel movies continue to be a bit of a tentpole and a bit of a big moment for theaters consistently, not even counting what's been going on with the closings. They are just always the big events of every year, which has definitely gone to their heads, but I understand trying to hold on to that unofficial crown, as it were. So next we have the big one. We have Dune by Denis Villeneuve, which looks so good. We got that trailer and it looks so cool and the cast is so nice, and I just want it to come out so that I can watch it. But if there's any movie on this list that demands a theatrical release, it's probably going to be Dune, just because Villeneuve is so good at maneuvering the camera. Seeing Arrival in a theater, seeing Sicario in a theater, seeing Blade Runner 2049 in a theater. I know it's a very film bro-y take, but he is one of the few filmmakers that anything he does, I feel like I get an infinitely better experience seeing it on the big screen, which I really cannot say for a lot of filmmakers at this point, just because I have started to find a lot of value in the comfort of your own home screening, but there's something about the way that man shoots a shot that is so helped by the big screen experience, and I do think Warner Brothers is in the right for trying to maintain it. Back on Marvel, The Eternals from November 6th, 2020 to February 12th, 2021, with the recent Black Widow move, was pushed to November 5th, 2021, does make me think that maybe there is somewhat of a through line for whatever they are setting up for this phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where Black Widow has to come first, which is very interesting, and I don't know exactly how that is going to go. Back on Warner Brothers, it's a lot of superhero movies because those are the big ones. Those are the ones that everyone really wants to talk about and get a lot of attention. The Flash from July 1st, 2022 to June 3rd, 2022 originally is now slated for November 4th, 2022. I think that might be one of the most delayed movies in history because I think it's supposed to have come out like 8 times by now, and it's just, I don't even know if the movie exists, to be quite frank. Remember when Lord and Miller were going to do it? Or Rick Famuyiwa was supposed to do it? Those were good times. The French Dispatch was also pulled from its schedule recently. It was originally pushed from July 24th to October 16th of this year, and now there are a lot of reports that it is shooting for a Cannes Film Festival 2021 release, which is an absolute shame because French Dispatch looks really good and I really want to see it, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't understand. Greenland, the thriller with Gerard Butler and Morena Baccarin, has been moved from its schedule entirely. It is currently to be determined. It might do a split release VOD in theaters in 2020, but I would not hold your breath for it. And also, if you're holding your breath for Greenland, I am a little bit confused, quite frankly. It doesn't look terribly good, but hey, you do you, I get it. Jurassic World Dominion, which has had a lot of issues because of concerns with filming right now, was just pushed from June 11th, 2021 to June 10th, 2022 to give them a little more time to make it and, just be good about things and not put their very, very expensive stars in any potential danger. A surprisingly good piece of news in terms of this, The Matrix 4, which had recently been pushed from May 21st, 2021 to April 1st, 2022, is now back up to December 2021 for its release. I don't know if it's going to make that. I know that they are filming it in Europe as of last month, where things are doing a lot better, and I hope that that will continue and that movie can come out, because that looks like that could be a great deal of fun. Also, it's already technically out, but The New Mutants is officially coming to DVD and Blu-ray and digital in November, and that poor movie just needed to come out. I know it's apparently not good. I haven't seen it yet because I don't want to go to a theater right now, but I am very, very excited for it to come out on DVD and digital just to see after all these years. Another huge push that happened recently was No Time to Die, the final Daniel Craig James Bond film, which was originally pushed from April 10th to November 25th, and then up a little bit to November 20th. This past week, it was announced that it has been pushed to April 2nd, 2021, which is disappointing, I shall say. That's another movie that I do understand trying to maintain the theatrical experience in a more pure understanding than something like the Marvel or even the WB movies, where they have an audience that won't immediately flock to it the same way that I think Marvel fans or DC fans potentially would. Obviously, the things you love, you want to see in the theater, especially if they're huge action tentpoles. But I think these movies that aren't these superhero franchises, stuff like Dune or James Bond or Mission Impossible, really demand the theatrical experience to be maintained for the safety of the film to make any sort of money back. I mean, we saw what happened with Tenet, where it did extremely poorly in its release because people don't really want to go to a theater right now. Like, it did okay, but in terms of Nolan's films, it did horribly. And it was a very expensive movie to make. So I think a lot of people saw Tenet and the underwhelming numbers from Mulan, which we still have not seen as they have not been publicly released, and started to push back the movies that really, really need that theatrical release and that theatrical money. Another Marvel, which was Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which was pushed from February 21st to May 7th of next year, has now been pushed to July 9th of next year. So now it is in the middle of Black Widow and the Eternals, which is very, very interesting. Back on WB, Shazam 2, which was pushed from April 1st, 2022 to November 4th of that same year, is now scheduled to come out on June 2nd, 2023, which is a shame because the first Shazam is really, really good. Like, it is one of the better of the superhero films that have been coming out around this time, and I want to see another one because I want to cry and watch people overcome their issues together because I like that. Something that just happened as of the day of recording, Soul, the Disney Pixar film, which was supposed to release on June 19th before getting moved to November 20th, is now set to premiere on Disney Plus. No surcharge, no Mulan fee as of the time of this recording. It's premiering on Christmas Day on Disney Plus, which really proves that the Mulan surcharge did not work, but also is exciting because I want to see this movie. It looks very good, and I want to see Pixar do some more good things because I like that kind of stuff. You know, it's Pixar. It's good. Thor: Love and Thunder has recently been moved from November 5th of 2021 to February 11th of 2022. Top Gun: Maverick, which had been moved from June 24th of this year to December 23rd, is now set to come out on July 2nd, 2021. The Spider-Man Far From Home sequel, which had already been moved from July 16th of next year to November 5th, is now set to come out on December 17th, 2021. It has seemingly had the smallest gaps of any of these Marvel changes, which, because there's not a ton of patterns, I don't really know what that means, but I'm sure there is someone who has made a 45-minute video on YouTube explaining all of that. Also, the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse sequel was moved from April 8th, 22 to October 7th, 22. The Venom sequel, which was on October 2nd, 2020, is now June 25th, 2021. West Side Story got pushed to December 10th, 2021. The Witches, which had just been taken off of the schedule, is now coming to HBO Max this month. So get hyped for that if you're like me and think that movie could potentially be really good. And the last one that I want to talk about is Wonder Woman 1984, which seems to be the last potential beacon of hope for Warner Brothers for this year, which was supposed to come out June 5th, then August 14th, then October 2nd, is supposed to be a Christmas Day 2020 release. I don't think it's going to make that date. I think Warner Brothers is going to keep pushing everything back until they know that they're not going to have an issue on their hands like they had with the Tenet release, where a lot of people do not feel comfortable returning to theaters. And I do understand that. I know that it is a hard time to release a film. But maybe some of these movies could just go to VOD, because VOD's been doing surprisingly well for a lot of people, as long as you don't put it on a streaming service, but then say it costs $30, just make it $20, like all of these movies have been doing, because that's what Bill and Ted did, and Bill and Ted did pretty okay, because a lot of people wanted to see it, because a lot of people needed some joy in their lives. Or make a deal with Netflix, or make a deal with Hulu, or Amazon Prime, or something. There is a way to get these films seen by the public right now. And outside of a lot of the tentpoles, which is a lot of what we were talking about, I think there are ways that a lot of people are neglecting in terms of trying to wait until the theater experience is salvaged specifically for them, which I don't think is necessarily the wisest thing in a lot of cases, but in some very specific cases, I get it. So that's what you have to look forward to a lot of things that are now much farther away than we initially expected them to be. But that's kind of the world that we live in now, and if anything else crazy happens in terms of pushbacks and release changes, as you know, I will let y'all know. Now, if you would just want to stick around a little bit longer, I am going to discuss the 4 films that are being released this month under Amazon Prime's Welcome to the Blumhouse. See you then.
Watching TV has changed over time. Streaming has become the new norm. That's why Golden State Media Concepts television podcast dives headfirst to the world of cord cutting. Want to be on the loop of what's hot in Netflix? Or if it's not a preference, what about original shows in Hulu? We've got you covered. Join us as we fill in the blank and talk about movies to stream and what show you should be binging. This is the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast.
Thank you so much for sticking around, and for the end of today's episode, I am going to talk a little bit about Welcome to the Blumhouse, a collection of films that is being released on Amazon Prime in 2 chunks. The first chunk, which was released on October 6th, the second chunk is being released on October 13th, and I have seen all 4 films that are being released, 2 films for each of the release dates, and these are an interesting bunch of movies, not necessarily because they're all interesting themselves, because some of them flat out are not, but it is interesting the way that they are being put together and kind of Frankensteined into a bit of an anthology-style distribution model. So the 4 films that are coming out for this first batch, because it has already been announced that 4 more films are coming in 2021, these 4 films are The Lie, starring Joey King, Marielle Enos, and Peter Sarsgaard. Black Box, starring Mamadou Athie. Nocturne, and Evil Eye. So, The Lie and Black Box came out on the 6th. The Lie is a very serious drama about a young girl played by Joey King who seemingly kills her best friend and her parents, Enos and Sarsgaard, who have to figure out how they're going to cover it up and how they're going to take care of their daughter. And the reason that I focus a lot about the actors specifically here is A, because they are well-known names, and also because this movie, more than anything else in this set, does not belong in this Welcome to the Blumhouse anthology, because it was not in any way designed for it. This is a remake of a German film called We Monsters from 2015. And this film actually originally played the Toronto Film Festival in 2018 at its premiere. And Jason Blum got a hold of it, and it has been sitting on a shelf for 2 years before being thrown in the middle of this collection. And the movie is terrible. Like, truly, truly terrible. It is annoying and obnoxious and badly put together, and a movie that makes me a very angry Davy, if you will. I'm not going to harp too much on it, just because I've already done some harping on bad things today, and it gets a little old. No matter how passionate I get, it gets a little old sometimes. So I'm just going to say that the movie sucks and you shouldn't watch it, and I give it a 1 out of 10. The second film, Black Box, which stars Athie as a young man who, in the aftermath of a traumatic car accident, is trying to repair his brain, basically, through an experimental procedure, wherein he goes into this black box, this room that is being crafted in a virtual mental space where he can try and deal with his issues. And things get spooky and things get a little screwy with the doctors performing this procedure and with his past and his memories. And it's all very like traditionally Black Mirror kind of stuff. It's not a great movie, but the performances really hold it together, and it is overall an enjoyable enough experience so that if you see it on Amazon Prime, it's not really scary, but it gets the job done if you want a short, not terribly deep science fiction film. So those are October 6th offerings. We have a very dry drama and a pretty silly science fiction thriller. Neither of these are horror films. It is October, and these are movies being produced by Jason Blum, which anyone would presume it's probably going to be a horror film, because that's kind of what he does. That's like his thing, is doing these horror and thriller films. It gets a little more traditionally Blumhouse-y with the second batch, where we have this film Nocturne. Oh, and Black Box gets 6 out of 10 stars, by the way. Where we have Nocturne, a knockoff of Black Swan and Whiplash, where a young woman, the younger of two twins at a prestigious music school for high schoolers, who feels inadequate and like she's not good enough because she's not good enough, finds a mysterious book left by the previous prodigy who took her own life, and slowly starts to go dark, as it will, in the pursuit of excellence, in the pursuit of impossible riches and successes, and getting to date the cute boy that was dating her sister, being able to play the beautiful show, and telling your sister what's up. And it's very basic and very standard kind of stuff, and it's not terribly interesting, all things considered, but it's fine, I guess. It's pretty, it's slow. I also wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but it gets 4 out of 10 stars from me. And then the final film of this collection is a film called Evil Eye, which centers on a young Indian woman in America whose new boyfriend starts to freak out her mother, because her mother, who lives in India, is convinced that this new boyfriend is a reincarnation of her dead abusive ex-boyfriend from when she was in her 20s. And this movie is really good. This is the reason why I wanted to talk about Welcome to the Blumhouse here, is because this movie is interesting and exciting and different and strange. And it's not perfect, and it's not even particularly scary. It's much more of a tense thriller. But if you have Amazon Prime and you see these movies and say, I want something good, the one that you need to watch is Evil Eye. Partially because it has so much going for it in terms of what it has to say about violence against women and about kind of the cycles of gendered aggression, which is interesting and cool and serves as kind of a nice companion piece to the other Blumhouse film about these topics from this year, The Invisible Man, which is just a fantastic little movie that I love so much. It's still one of the best films of the year for my money. And so with these 4 films, Nocturne gets a 4 out of 10, Evil Eye gets an 8 out of 10. With these 4 films, what is the connective tissue? What makes The Lie, Black Box, Nocturne, and Evil Eye come together? Nothing. The answer is nothing. They have almost nothing to do with each other. None of them are in the same little subgenres. We have a dry drama, a goofy sci-fi thriller, a pretty pretentious art thriller, and a kind of campy, like, domestic horror film. So what is the marketing push for Welcome to the Blumhouse? Because it wants to make you think that these are all spook fests, and they're not. None of them are really terribly scary. I mean, Evil Eye is pretty intense, and it's disturbing, but I wouldn't necessarily call it anything that frightened me to a certain degree. And I think what this is trying to do is to give an avenue to things that aren't traditional horror films, but still have that kind of Blumhouse scrappy energy. And if that is what they are trying to do, then I am really happy about it, because it's giving a platform to smaller films, even movies that I don't like, even movies that I hate, like The Lie. Letting these weirder experiments, these 90-minute films that would have crashed and burned in the theaters or have just floundered on VOD pretty much forever, being able to give them an outlet to be released and to be put on a screen in a way where people can just pick one and go, kind of a grab bag of random small movies and just kind of see what comes out, is an exhilarating, fantastic, and kind of awful idea that I really, really like. It's like those images that I would see on like Tumblr in high school of bookstores where they black out all the covers and just like write the genre of the book on the spine in like a paper bag, and they say, if you want this, take it, like grab bag it, just see what you get. And I think that's a really exciting way to introduce more people into these into films. I think it breeds curiosity and breeds creativity to just say, all right, you know, a Blumhouse movie, you know generally what you might be getting, but just take one and run with it. Just take 90 minutes of your time and take a chance. If you change your mind, I'm the first in line. Darling, can't you see? Take a chance on Blum, 'cause my name is Jason Blum and I make lots of movies, and I want to show you all on Amazon Prime. So yeah, the grab bag of random chance is a very bold move on their part, and I'm sure that it came out of, well, we got a bunch of movies that we don't know what to do with, and especially in 2020, there's really no proper way to get any hype for them whatsoever. I mean, look to a film like the film I reviewed last week, You Should Have Left, that just kind of floundered. That probably could have been a Welcome to the Blumhouse style film. That could have been something that just is there and maybe got a little more clout and a little more notoriety because it was in this little mixture, so that people can look at it and say, hey, don't watch that one, watch You Should Have Left, watch Evil Eye, watch Black Box. They're not great, but they're interesting, and they're exciting almost exclusively by virtue of not knowing what you're getting into. It's the similar feeling to what Black Mirror does, but with new writers and new directors every single episode, or every single movie, as it were. It's kind of bringing back this like 90s cable era of movie watching where you're sitting in front of the couch and it's there, and the guy at HBO decided that you were going to watch this movie at this time if you were in front of the screen. So you might as well try it out and see if it's something that you like. And I think a lot of great movies get discovered that way. And I think that if this keeps going, which we know it's going for at least 4 more films, but I really hope that it just keeps on and we keep getting interesting and strange stories in this manner, because I really like it. I like what Welcome to the Blumhouse is doing, and I want them to keep doing it until they run out of movies, which if what Jason Blum has been doing for the past 10, 15 years is anything to go by, that will never happen, because that man produces like I wake up in the morning. The day starts and you just do it. You produce a movie and you're like, all right, I'm done. I'm Jason Blum. Woo! I'm assuming that's how he talks. I don't know. He seems like a genuinely very nice person, but also like a little overexcited. And I think that's the right way to be as an adult with an incredible amount of control over the state of horror films in the United States. And I think that's really cool. I think all of it is just very thrilling to see what could potentially come out of this. I would only really recommend one of these 4 films, Evil Eye, which is, again, very good. But I like that this happens, and I like that in 2021, there's going to be 4 more films that I get to watch and say, maybe I can recommend one of these. Maybe that'll be the one that I can show people and say, hey, try this out. And if they like it, maybe they'll try another one from the grab bag, and maybe that'll be the one that really connects with them. I just think it's a really cool idea, and I really like it. And I wanted to share my thoughts on it with you all because there's not been a ton of advertising for this collection series thing, and I wanted to change that just a little bit, person by person. With that said, thank you so much for listening to the GSMC Movie Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. As always, if you could leave a review for us, it really helps us out. If you like the show, that means a lot, and it helps boost our spot on iTunes, and it helps more people see the show, so we really appreciate it. Also, if you would be so kind as to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, that also really, really helps the show out. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and stay spooky, friends. Bye.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Movie Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.